This is Boulder Blitz. It comes with the speed of Shred, but the AoE clear of Boulder. You're going to constantly have 10 boulders spinning around you, dealing damage to enemies and knocking them back. And after spending some time finagling with the build, I was able to get it to a point where it's actually dealing good damage and clearing over pit 95. It can handle all T4 content, including bosses, and level its own glyphs, so it can do everything you're going to want to do. Now I'm going to get into the specifics of the build, but first, if you enjoy my content, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and stop by my Twitch stream at twitch.tv/screamheart. Now let me get into the details. So first off, let me explain how the build works. So the build mostly revolves around Dolmen Stone, which is a unique amulet. This item changes our boulder from this, where it rolls in a straight line away from us, into something that's actually usable by using Hurricane and then spinning the boulder around us. Now we can spin up to 10 boulders at the same time, which as you can see can get kind of crazy. But normally boulder has a cooldown, and we don't have a cooldown, and instead we have a spirit cost. And that's because of the aspect Metamorphic Stone. This is not only increasing our boulder's damage, but also making it into a core skill, and it still maintains its Wrath skill tab, which means we're able to get damage from Wrath and core bonuses. Another pretty significant item in the build is Vasili's Prayer. This one turns our earth skills, such as Boulder, into werebear skills, and allows us to use multiple different damage sources, especially big multipliers for overpower damage, which we're getting a lot of in this build. Our primary source of overpowers is going to come from our runes. So we've got Knock Zon, and this one is activating when we crowd control enemies, and we do that constantly. And the more enemies we have around us, the faster this is going to fill. This does mean, however, that it's less effective on bosses. So if you're going to do bosses specifically, you're going to want to swap out Knock. A good alternative is Igni for bossing. And our other rune is going to be Ahu Cox, and this gives us 100% more damage, and this activates on lucky hit chance, which I've tested, and we get enough lucky hits to make this sustainable. And again, the more enemies around, the better. Again, if you're bossing, you can use something different like Tom, which activates when we cast a core skill. So let me go ahead and go through the rest of our items real quick. We've got Shroud of False Death, which gives us a lot of damage because it gives us 1 extra to all of our passives, and we have a lot of passives that increase our damage and our survivability. This also gives us a lot of all stats, and all stats are very important because it's giving you your bonuses in your paragon tree. Not to mention whatever the primary stat actually gives normally. So for example, Dex gives crit chance, and willpower is giving us a lot more overpower and skill damage. On our gloves, we're running Changeling's Debt. This is a big multiplier, and I'm not going to go through all of the specific stats on the gear, but click on the link underneath the video and go to my written guide because you can see all the recommended stats. But I will say on the gloves, it's pretty important to get plus to core skills here, because normally on your gloves, when you're running a core build, they're going to have things like Pulverize, which will give you points towards that skill. And there isn't one of those for Boulder, but core skills is a nice replacement. For our pants, we're doing Tybalt's Will. This is going to give us a lot of damage reduction, more of the all stats, and a nice damage multiplier. And I'm a Herpaderp because I was using this build without having any Unstoppable in it, so I wasn't even getting my damage multiplier here. So I'm going to add that in retroactively, but keep in mind that the gameplay from the beginning was missing 20% damage. For the boots, we're running Storm Shifters, and you also get ranks to Boulder on your boots, which means that you can actually get 13 ranks to Boulder just from your boots. It's kind of crazy. Again, I'm not going to cover the specific stats and tempers because you can find those in the written guide, but I will note that on the weapon, it's actually not that important to get the chance for Boulder projectiles to cast twice, because this only helps you to ramp up your number of boulders quickly, and it's very easy even without this to sustain your 10 boulders. So don't stress that. In fact, ideally, I would have no bonuses into it on my item. For our legendary ring, we're going with Natural Balance, which we're going to be keeping active using both our Hurricane and our Cyclone Armor. Not only is the cooldown low on Cyclone Armor to sustain this, but we also reset our cooldowns anytime we use Petrify. Another important note here, you want to have chance to apply Vulnerable to enemies on your legendary ring. Technically, you are getting it from your Cyclone Armor, but you're not going to have perfect uptime on this, especially since certain enemies aren't going to get hit whenever you use this. So having the extra chance will help fill in any holes. And then we're using Ring of Starless Skies. This is just a really good item all around. It's reducing our spirit costs, increasing our damage, giving us more skill ranks, attack speed, critical strike chance, and lucky hit chance. Everything very useful to us. But just a note, you don't have to have the mythics for this build. If you check the written guide, there's a mid-game tab, and it has alternative options for any mythics, and it has a stripped-down paragon board, which will allow you to get everything you need for the build with only about 200 paragon points instead of the total of 300. And then for our totem, we're going with Retaliation here. This is a big damage buff, but another thing to note on the totem is we have cooldown reduction here. And if you adjust the cooldown reduction here, the cooldown reduction on your amulet, and the cooldown reduction from the legendary temper here, then you can get to the cooldown cap of 75%, which will get your ultimate down under 10 seconds, which means you'll have this up more often, and you can pretty much guarantee that you're always going to have Debilitating Roar active. and for sure you're going to have everything else active. Now let me talk about the skills just a little bit before we get into more specifics. So on the bar, we've got Cyclone Armor, which is increasing our damage against enemies by 15% when they get hit with it, and it's also giving us that vulnerable. Also activating a defensive skill activates some passives in our skill tree, so it's very useful to use this often. Same thing with Debilitating Roar, but Debilitating Roar offers us more damage to enemies and more damage reduction. Our Hurricane is reducing enemy damage, but this is also necessary to maintain our boulder spinning around us for Dolmen Stone, so make sure you recast this before it runs off or you lose all your boulders. Another important note is that you can lose your boulders on enemies with Suppressor, so make sure if there's a Suppressor enemy that you go inside their circle as soon as possible and spam your boulders out again. If you're inside, you'll be able to maintain your boulders. Also, the Hurricane is activating our Storm Shifters, giving us the 5 additional skill ranks. And because we're using Vasilis, those 5 skill ranks are also applying to our Petrify, which means even lower cooldown. Our Petrify is stunning all enemies, which is contributing to the crowd control for our rune. It's also increasing our critical strike damage and refreshing all of our other cooldowns. And when you're on a boss, Petrify gets 10 seconds of cooldown to itself automatically, which means you can cast it constantly. And you also get some of that as you kill enemies when you use Petrify as well. We're using Shred primarily for the mobility, and this is what allows us to dash around like we're using Shred. But this is also activating the doubled effect for our Toxic Claws passive, and it activates Digitrade Gate, which is going to give us more movement speed. And of course, we're spamming Boulder for damage. For our Spirit Boons, we're going Gift of the Stag for more Spirit, Avian Wrath for more damage, Energize for Spirit, Obsidian Slam for more overpower, and Masochistic for healing. And I actually didn't have Masochistic on the build while I was recording my footage, so you might notice my health was a little lower, but I added it in because I felt it was more important than getting a little more HP. But you do have an option of going Iron Feather if you decide you like that more. For our seasonal powers, another thing I changed was adding in Nebulous Extract, and this is going to give us more damage reduction. We're using Disintegrate so that we can execute enemies more quickly, and we're executing them with Bloody Charm. We're using Fractured Core to remove enemy damage resistance aura, and Reactive Ooze to fill our spirit even more. For our consumables, we're going with Elixir of Advantage, but you can also go with Elixir of Fortitude for more HP. We're using Blessed Guide for the willpower, Redamine Buzz for the max life, but you can also go armor here if you need it, and Soothing Spices for all resist. In our skill tree, we're grabbing 2 points in Claw just so we can move to the next category. We're maxing out Wild Impulses for damage. If you have spirit issues, you can drop Wild Impulses. We're also grabbing Shred and the 2 additional points so we can dash to enemies. We're grabbing Cyclone Armor and Innate Cyclone Armor for more damage, Backlash for damage, Ancestral Fortitude for resistances, 1 point in Vigilance just for a little more damage reduction. We're grabbing Debilitating Roar and Innate Debilitating Roar for more damage, Feral Aptitude for damage. We're also getting Crushing Earth, Stone Guard, Toxic Claws, Envenom, Defiance, Natural Disaster, Resonance, Catastrophe, and Quick Shift for more damage. We're getting Hurricane and the 2 additional points for damage reduction. We're maxing out our Boulder and going to Savage Boulder to make our damage poison. And then finally, we're grabbing our Keystone passive, which is Earth Sign Strength for survivability and damage. For the Paragon boards, we're going with Fang and Claw on the first board, then moving up, attaching Heightened Malice, and here we're going with Spirit. Moving to the left here, we're attaching our Survival Instincts board, and going with Keeper Glyph here. Moving down from there, we're attaching our Ancestral Guidance board, and here we're going with Dominate Glyph. Finally, we're moving down and attaching our Earth and Devastation, and here we're going with Earth and Sky. So overall, I would recommend this build if you're mostly doing T4 content. It's not my top pick if you're doing bossing, but it's perfectly fine if you are. I do not recommend this build for high pit pushing. It's going to start feeling pretty slow after tier 90, but overall, it's a lot of fun, and it's great for speed farming. So I hope you guys enjoyed the build, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Thanks for watching. Daddy Druid out.
Subscribe to Scream Heart. He's more than an old fart. He makes lots of fun builds. I promise his streams chill. He should probably be faster. Come watch this disaster.